The International Monetary Fund has recommended that Sri Lanka focus on strengthening VAT and income taxes through rate increases and base broadening measures. This is to restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability, implementing a credible and coherent strategy covering both the near and medium term that is needed. The recommendation was made via a press release by the IMF following the conclusion of the Article 4 consultation with Sri Lanka by the Executive Board. Here are the other recommendations. Budget deficits and fiscal consolidation. IMF staff recommends that, at a minimum, fiscal consolidation should achieve a primary balance, government revenue minus expenditure plus interest cost, of 0 by 2024. Staff and the authorities agreed that fiscal consolidation should be primarily revenue-based. Sri Lanka's tax to GDP ratio is among the lowest in the world. Commentary on tax holidays, para-tariffs and budget 2022. Generous corporate and personal income tax exemptions eroded the effectiveness of the 2017 Inland Revenue Act, and the widespread use of project-based tax holidays, the effectiveness of which remains questionable, has led to large revenue losses. The multitude of indirect taxes renders the tax system unpredictable and complex, while high para-tariffs hinder competitiveness and growth. The main tax measures of the 2022 budget were undesirable. Retroactive income taxes on the past taxable income undermine tax certainty, and turnover taxes are less efficient than the VAT due to a cascading of the tax burden along the supply chain. Public expenditure management. Given limited fiscal space and the need for higher social safety net spending, some scaling back of non-priority expenditure may be needed, accompanied by greater spending efficiency. An overarching strategy for managing the public wage bill is needed to reverse the recent increasing trend. Expenditure rationalization, however, is no substitute for revenue mobilization, given that Sri Lanka's non-interest recurring expenditure are not out of line with its peers. Phasing out direct financing of budget deficits. Further monetary financing would aggravate inflation risks. Staff's analysis based on a battery of empirical results suggests that price increases are expected to catch up with money expansion over time in Sri Lanka. The CBSL's plan and some initial steps taken to gradually unwind its large T-bill holdings are welcome and critical for fulfilling its price stability mandate. In doing so, the CBSL should coordinate with the Ministry of Finance on a well-sequenced and time-bound exit strategy and clearly communicate that monetary budget financing should remain an extraordinary last resort measure. Sri Lanka's debt sustainability. In staff's view, Sri Lanka's public debt is unsustainable. Restoring Sri Lanka's public debt sustainability to bring external public debt and debt service down to manageable levels will help raise Sri Lanka's NIIP and reduce risks to external sustainability from elevated gross external liabilities and potential adverse valuation effects. Cost recovery-based energy pricing is needed to mitigate fiscal risks from state-owned enterprises. To mitigate the implied fiscal risks, automatic fuel and electricity pricing mechanisms should be adopted, under which retail prices are periodically adjusted in line with cost recovery levels. This would pass changes in input costs through to consumers and eliminate energy subsidies, which disproportionately benefit the rich rather than the poor. If energy subsidies are not eliminated, then they should be transparently remunerated through the budget within targeted fiscal deficits. Finally, an overarching strategy is needed to address high SOE debt and growing currency mismatches on energy SOE's balance sheets. Authorities should gradually return to a market-determined and flexible exchange rate. To help rebalance supply and demand in the FX markets, moral suasion used to dissuade exchange rate movements should be phased out to allow the exchange rate to adjust to market conditions, as exercised before April 2021. To avoid disorderly movements in the exchange rate, These measures should be carefully sequenced and implemented as part of a comprehensive macroeconomic adjustment package. FX intervention by the CBSL should be limited to truly disorderly market conditions, especially given the precarious reserves position. When needed, additional monetary policy tightening should be considered to counter FX market pressures and mitigate exchange rate pass-through to inflation. Greater exchange rate flexibility is also a prerequisite for flexible inflation targeting. Efforts to strengthen governance and reduce corruption vulnerabilities should continue. The Colombo Port City project brings about an important opportunity for investment promotion and for testing growth-enhancing structural reforms. To maximize its benefits while minimizing associated risks, there is a need to ring-fence tax concessions, ensure compliance with international tax and AML/CFT standards, and shield the domestic financial sector from offshore banking activities in the port city. Import restrictions. The authorities should develop a schedule for the import restrictions to be phased out. A wide-reaching and coherent investment promotion strategy should help avoid excessive reliance on tax incentives. Sri Lanka's medium-term GDP growth potential. Exogenous factors such as natural disasters, the 2018 political crisis, and the 2019 terrorist attack have not only caused large output losses for current periods, but also may have a long-lasting impact on growth potential by impeding factor accumulation and productivity growth. Sri Lanka's medium-term growth potential is estimated to be around 3.1 to 4.1% at this juncture. Await a comprehensive report on primetime news at 9 p.m. on TV1 today.